They travel at speeds pushing 200 miles per hour. The very best drivers in the world putting their lives on the line every week. It's time to get the lowdown on this week's contenders, plus a look at the key driver matchups. Right now on Gaughan Racing.
Welcome into another edition of Gaughan Racing. I'm Jeff Motley, live here in the sports book at the South Point Hotel and Casino. My partner, Brendan Gaughan. Brendan, still in quarantine, so I get to look at Brendan over to my right on a television screen and hear him in my ears. Brendan, how you doing, buddy?
I am still at home, Mr. Motley. I am still trying to test negative twice, and not really happy about it at the moment. It's been very frustrating, but I'm still good. I'm still here. I didn't have any midweek races this week to keep me, to bide my time with. So I'm excited to be back racing this week and now get something going on.
Well, you look good. I can't believe after 3.5 weeks we still haven't gotten you some negative. See, you got a lot more gray than me, and you're younger than me, so I want to point that out.
Well, the gray, you give me the gray. You've given it to me all these years, but you
fair,
and my kids.
Fair enough.
But yeah, 3 weeks is the longest I've grown this in a long time, and I forgot how much I really don't care to have a beard.
You don't like? Well, then shave it off, but then you got to take some time.
Yeah,
to do that, so.
Now it's unshaveable. Now you got to take the clippers first. You got to buzz. It's a whole process.
All right. So we won't talk about the race to grow beards. We'll talk about the racing on the track. And first thing we got, it's kind of weird last Sunday not having a race. We got to go all the way back to the past Thursday for the race we had at Kansas Speedway. But we had those two big upsets back to back with Cole Custer and Austin Dillon winning races, and we finally saw the chalk kind of rise to the top again, where we saw Denny Hamlin take the checkered flag, and we saw Kevin Harvick back up front running well. Is this kind of what we're going to grow to expect over most of the races the rest of the way, or do you think maybe we do have some surprises coming?
Well, what's really funny is if you look at it, Jeff, Denny Hamlin was plus 800 to win that race, which Denny Hamlin has won the most races this year. He was still plus 800. You and I said it last weekend. 800 was a great number on Denny Hamlin. I mean, that was I can't believe they had him that high. So the chalk will be there, and I do believe it's going to start the season. But Brad Keselowski, to me, is the guy that you just kind of go, which Brad Keselowski is going to show up every week? And man, he really looked good. But Denny Hamlin, as far as, being chalky, had great numbers. I mean, Jeff, look at those numbers on the screen.
Yeah, he had incredible numbers, and like I said, he was plus line on head-to-heads against both Harvick and Ryan Blaney, which kind of, if you really look back, it's a little surprising that maybe against Kevin Harvick, but I can't imagine the rest of the way, with the exception maybe of the road course events we've got and the Daytona-Talladega events, that Denny Hamlin or Kevin Harvick should be a plus line against anybody other than themselves.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that, plus 225 in the top three? I mean, dude, this is a guy that could be minus 150 on most given weekends. He was plus 225 for a top three, and he wasn't even the favorite in his group at a plus 240 in Group B. So that was great returns for Denny Hamlin last week. Even him being a favorite most every week, that was great returns.
Well, and if we go back and we look at the odds that paid out, the top finishers, we really did see the ultimate in chalk. I mean, we saw Brad Keselowski, we saw Martin Truex Jr., we saw Kevin Harvick. I mean, that's your top four finishers right there, and then you got Eric Jones hopping in there. But I think when you see that, it's like we had the ultimate chalk at Kansas.
Look, they were all right there. That's why they're the favorites. We talk all the time that NASCAR is very favorite heavy. But, you kind of stopped right there. Look at the next six positions, Jeff Motley.
Yeah, I mean,
six.
Right. You got the two Erics, even though they spell them differently. Custer, again, another strong run for Custer on a 1.5 mile track. And keep in mind, Cole Custer is locked in now to the playoffs. A lot of 1.5 mile tracks in the playoffs, including, Darlington's not a 1.5 mile track that's going to kick it off. The one thing I think is going to be a little bit of a wild card, even though you got the 1.5 mile tracks like Las Vegas and you got Texas and you got Homestead and some tracks like that in the playoffs. So those first three playoff races, Darlington and two short tracks, could really, really upset things going right on into the playoffs. But I just think it's interesting to see those guys up there running well.
You look, Alex Bowman ran well earlier, has not been running well lately, did again. William Byron has been running well, not finishing well, another top 10. Kurt Busch, a guy that,
he's
you
like
never
running
know
top 10 every week, it seems lately. I mean, he's been right there.
And you just don't talk about him. He's like the Ryan Newman of yesteryear, where you don't say anything about Kurt Busch, and then you go, hey, Kurt Busch finished in the top 10. How did he do that? He's doing it, but I got to focus on, you look at group matchups from just about every week, Jeff Motley, and Eric Jones and Eric Almirola are in the same group week in and week out, and they are battling for that group win. I mean, look, it's 5th and 6th this week. Any weekend, those two right there are battling for it. Eric Jones, Eric Almirola, 8 top 10 in a row?
8 top 10s in a row if you don't count what he did in the All-Star races. Actually, he finished 9th in the main All-Star race. He finished 20th, I think, in the qualifiers. I don't know where he finished in the qualifier, but don't count the All-Star races. He's finished in the top 10 8 consecutive races. He only had 3 top 10s all year long until this 8-race streak.
No, he is absolutely on fire. And when they put him and Eric Jones in the same groups, it bums me out because I look at that and, last week, Group C, Eric Jones won it as the dog, I believe. I think somebody might have picked that. I don't remember. You can refresh my memory. But, if you look at that, Eric Jones and Eric Almirola, boom. And look at that whole group. Hold on. Look at that whole Group C. That was all of them in the top 10.
All 4 in the top 10. That's almost impossible. That
in Group C. Not Group A, not Group B. Group C, all of them were in the top 10.
If you could have boxed that all 4 of those guys would finish in the top 10, what kind of odds you think you'd have gotten on that?
If you'd got Group C to be all 4 top 10, I'd have given that a +5, maybe even a 10-to-1 shot. I mean, that is a long shot that all 4 of those would be in the top 10, and that's where they finished with Eric Jones as the dog winning it. So you got to watch these group matchups. They're getting tougher and tougher every week.
Well, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing. I mean, I think what we've seen is that, okay, I think we all know Harvick and Hamlin are the big 2. We've seen Martin Truex Jr. have some really good runs and some struggles. We've seen Keselowski with some really good runs and some struggles. We really have not seen the really strong runs out of Kyle Busch or out of Joey Logano. We've seen some really good runs out of Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney. There's a lot of different guys that have had their coming and going moments. Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick are the only 2 that seem to be there week in and week out every week. But speaking of
Eric Almirola.
Eric Almirola, he's been top 10, and he's had some top 5s too. But he hasn't won.
He had
and I think
5 top 5s in a row at one point.
Yeah, that's true. And he's been very strong. Now, one guy I just mentioned, our long national nightmare is over. Kyle Busch finally got a playoff point. But still, he won a stage. He won his first stage of the year, and then he does not get a top 10. Brendan, at what point, we have 7 races left before the playoffs. At what point are you concerned if you're a Kyle Busch fan, if you're Kyle Busch, if you're Kyle Busch's crew chief? I mean,
what point am I concerned? I'm concerned the race before Phoenix.
Well, you got to count on him being there. Now, granted, I will give him this. The fact that Bristol is in the first 3 races of the playoffs, I think is huge for Kyle Busch, because I still think he is the best driver at Bristol on the circuit, even if he didn't win there this year and he didn't win the All-Star race. He was second in the All-Star race, and honestly, if that had been a longer race, he probably would have won the All-Star race because he was chasing Chase Elliott down, and I do believe he is the best guy on the circuit at Bristol. But I think that's the only positive right now he can look for, because he really, really needs to put some W's up. I'm sorry.
To me, it's the same thing we talked about in years past with Jimmy Johnson through his 7-time run when he had the 5 in a row where they would have that streak where they wouldn't do well. Or they would do well, they just wouldn't win. Everybody would, the king is dead, and the playoffs hit. We've said that about Kyle Busch in the past. We've said that about Kevin Harvick in the past. We've said that about Martin Truex, in the past. So, I mean, if you look, all these guys have had that run. Now, Kyle, the only thing that scares me is Kyle has talked publicly that he wants practice, that he is really he has said it over and over again, Jeff, that he wants to have practice, and he's not getting it.
He's not getting any the rest of the year.
No.
That's already been announced. Now,
so he better suck it up or get it out of his head, because he does need to do that. But he's having a slump like we talked Kevin Harvick last year that I would kill for. I mean, he still runs amazing. It just isn't the Kyle Busch that we're used to seeing, but he can turn that on like a light switch.
Well, I think the most important weekends for him are going to be the doubleheaders at Michigan and Dover coming up, because he wants practice. Then let Saturday be his practice, go win the races on Sunday. And if he can do that, then, okay, we'll give him a little bit of credence to that. And look, when he gets to Daytona and runs that road course, no one is going to have any practice. No one is going to have made a lap in a stock car around that racetrack when they throw the green flag.
But Kyle is one of those that has laps around that road course. So I think that will help him a little bit. But Kyle, I mean, look, Kyle has proven he's been a good road racer, but I wouldn't put him as a favorite on the road courses normally.
No. In fact, the guy that seems to become the road course ace is Martin Truex Jr. here lately. I mean, he's become really good, and Chase Elliott has done a nice job there. All right, Brendan, before we start getting into the next race at New Hampshire, let's talk just a little bit about our standings, about our point standings. Clearly, the wins are what's most important right now. We've got 10 guys who have got wins heading into the playoffs. We're going to take a total of 16. So technically, the one-win guys have not officially clinched in case we were to get 7 different winners in the next 7 races, which I don't think is going to happen. But, I mean, look at the playoff points, especially that Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick are racking up. I mean, those two are almost – they're almost locked into Homestead already with the amount of points that they're building up.
We've said that so many years in the past, Jeff, that they're locked in. What was it, 2 years ago when you had Martin, Kyle, and Harvick, I think.
It was Martin, Kyle, and Harvick, and then Joey Logano pulled that upset at Martinsville and jumped in the thing and ended up winning the championship.
And so just because you have those playoff points does not guarantee you that you're going to make it there. It does give you that aid to get through those rounds, to have some bad races, but it doesn't guarantee it. But what I'm looking at is the names on the outside looking in. I mean, look, you got names on the inside like Cole Custer. We were not expecting Cole Custer to be in a locked-in spot.
No, look at how many points Cole Custer has accumulated. The exact same number of points that Bubba Wallace has accumulated, who is in 20th position, but because Cole has got a win, Cole is in the playoffs. And I think that's a telling stat right there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some guys like Austin Dillon, his point total actually has him outside the top 16, but he's got that win now. The question is, I don't think we're going to get to 17 winners. Let's not go there. But you look at that cutoff line, immediate first thing, I mean, look, Jeff, if there isn't anybody that can look at that cutoff line and not go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, Jimmy Johnson is now out of the top 16. That is the first huge glaring thing. But then you've got Eric Jones, who you and I have talked, and I keep saying is one of the hottest guys right now around. Eric Jones has been doing extremely well. Tyler Reddick and the RCR team has been running better. They've won. They were first and second. Tyler Reddick runs really well. Jimmy has an uphill battle right now.
Well, and for those that are watching us on YouTube, watching us on VSiN.com, if we get that graphic back up there again, to show the bottom, I want to show where we've got 11 through 16 and then 17 through 20. All right. If for those of you that are just listening to us, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are Tyler Reddick at 10 points behind William Byron, Eric Jones 12 points behind William Byron, Jimmy Johnson 18 points behind William Byron, and then really it goes off because Bubba Wallace is 100 behind William Byron. So there, in terms of points, there's really 19 guys for 16 spots. And Brendan, I'm asking you a question. If you had to say, okay, of the top 16 now, or of 17, 18, 19, who is out? Who is the 3 guys that you think will not make it of the top 19 right now?
I mean, and you're also saying, though, that you're not going to have a Michael McDowell or Ty Dillon winner.
Right.
We're saying that,
Super Speedway. Right. We're saying no upset winner. I'm just saying right now, just look at those. And I'm taking Bubba out of the mix because he's not making up 100 points in
he's not gonna make
7 races.
Right now, unless Jimmy Johnson can get back to that Jimmy Johnson we saw for the first 5 or 6 races after, we came back racing from the COVID-19 thing, Jimmy has not been running as strong. Now, we've just seen William Byron and William Byron and Alex Bowman, both in the top 10. We've seen Chase Elliott. At one point, you called him the hottest guy in the sport. We've seen Hendrick Cars do well, but I don't see Jimmy Johnson making up those points right now. The most volatile to me is Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick can be the guy that can be in the top 10, but also can wreck his car running that high line and be 30th. So Tyler Reddick to me is the most volatile. Eric Jones to me is the most consistent. If I'm Clint Boyer or I'm Matt DiBenedetto, I am more, because remember, Clint Boyer has a history of running great.
Of not finishing great.
And that's my point. He has that history of he's run great, and then he finishes 33rd because something happens. Clint Boyer is the guy that I'd be worried about, because all it takes is one bad race from Clint or Matty D, and that line gets more crowded closer to it.
Well, and honestly, my opinion is 15 of the top 16 are going to make it. I think Eric Jones gets in. I think Clint Boyer misses. And I love Clint. You love Clint. He's our buddy. But, boy, if I had to bet right now, my money's on Eric Jones over Clint Boyer. He's most inconsistent. Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
All right, Brendan, guess what? We're heading to the track they call the Magic Mile this weekend. Now,
and we beat your miss. Let's start off. You're not. I don't know if you knew him well. I did, but former track owner Bob Bear, the owner and builder of New Hampshire Motor Speedway, the man who built it originally, to a race car driver, one of the greatest men in this sport. Jeff, he used to pay tow money back in the days when nobody did those things, and Bob Bear will be missed greatly by all of us.
Yeah, from a businessman, probably no one more influential in the entire New England region. He also ran Oxford Plains Speedway up in Maine. He was from Maine. He really brought NASCAR to the entire New England area when really modifieds were all that raced up there. Bob was also very instrumental working in Las Vegas with Richie Klein on getting the first NASCAR race that went on, the first Cup Series race that went on in 1998. Bob and his son Gary were very involved in that, and Bob was 93 years old. We lost him this week, and kind of fitting that we lose him on a week heading into the New Hampshire race. Give them an opportunity to honor him. But Bob had a great life, and I know Richie Klein, who built Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and Bob were incredibly close. So I know it's sort of a big loss for the Klein family. So I'm glad you brought that up. But now I was on the edge with Jonathan Von Tobel a little while ago, and he kind of asked me to compare New Hampshire to another racetrack. And I told him, I said, there's really no other track like it. I said, you could find maybe a little similarity in Phoenix, except the backstretch is not the same. It's Martinsville doubled is kind of the best way I could try to explain it to him. It's nothing like Dover, because Dover's got the high banks and it's flat. It is a very unique track and a unique layout.
Well, we have heard that they're going to have fans. So first I want to say, yay, we got some fans at the track. Not many, but at least some. But the track itself, there is no place really, Jeff. I heard you with JVT, and you kind of mentioned Dover, that they're both a mile. That's about the only similarity.
Exactly, and I told him that.
Dover,
right.
They happen to be a mile long. The Magic Mile is a driver-style track, but it requires so much engineering. I love it as a driver because, Jeff, you're putting 600 pounds of braking into every corner. You are flying going into these corners. You go into turn 3 and there's a bump as you go in the corner. So when you drive into turn 3, you hit the brake pedal, that splitter, bam, it comes down and it smacks that nose and it upsets the front of the race car. The apron is actually the race course. I mean, the apron. And now, though, since they've been doing the PJ1 stuff, you end up now driving all the way down to the apron and going all the way down past it. This track is so driver-friendly as far as what I can do. Extremely aggressive, extremely difficult, but a ton of fun.
Well, and it's always an exciting race. For a minute there, I thought we were doing a cooking show with Emerald Lagasse. Bam. Okay, that's good. We got the dog in the background. We got the cell phone. We're having a good time, right, Brendan?
Sorry. The puppy. I can't control the puppy when I'm stuck at home. He hears noise at the door.
All right, now, you and I have been to New Hampshire many times. We've been to many of those race weekends. Now, a typical Friday at New Hampshire has got about 3 or 4 series practicing and qualifying. It's got a K&N East Series race, or Arkham and Nards Series East race. It's got a truck race. Saturday has got a modified race, an Xfinity race, more Cup practice, qualifying for those series, and then Sunday we finally run the Cup race. There have been 4 series that have raced, 5 series that have practiced and qualified to put rubber down on the track. This weekend, we're going to go to New Hampshire, and there's not going to be a single thing on that racetrack until they drop the green flag on Sunday for that Cup race. Do you think that's going to make a big difference, and is it going to send the crew chiefs scrambling a little bit early on?
To me, the problem I have is that the tracks keep talking about no rubber down, yet we have the ability to drag tires. They have the devices, Jeff, to run the tires to put rubber down.
But is that the same? Is that the same, really?
it at least puts rubber in those little crevices and cracks.
Yeah,
so it does help.
36 cars, though, running hundreds of laps around there with 2,000 pounds at speed.
I'm not disagreeing with you but you can put some rubber down. It does help. I'm not saying it's the same, but it does help. And nobody's been talking about that. But that's going to be a chew-up tire you're going to have a competition caution, Motley, at probably lap 30, 35, maybe 40, I'm guessing.
I would guess at least by 30, probably. They might even do 2 competition cautions on that track. It wouldn't shock me. But it's only a 301-lap race. So
that was my point. You would almost want 2 competition cautions at that track because it's going to chew some tires up for that whole first stage.
What do you think the crew chiefs are going to go? I mean, do you think if you're a crew chief, granted, we got guys like, Rodney Childers, who has been the most consistent crew chief there over the last at least 5 or 6 races. Is he pulling his hair out a little bit this weekend because he doesn't really know what to expect? You're a driver. Drivers just take the wheel and do what the crew chief tells you to do. But the crew chief, he's got a little more pressure on him, right?
Listen, Rodney Childers, I don't think he pulls his hair out any week.
He's pretty laid back.
He was with me back in the Penske days. I tried to get him to Vegas. Thank God I didn't ruin his career. I love me some Rodney. He's not pulling nothing out. He's just sitting there going, I got this. And I got Kevin Harvick. He knows he's got this.
Well, and I think that's going to certainly be one of the advantages. You're talking about great crew chiefs. I think we're going to see that with Kevin Harvick. We're going to see that with Denny Hamlin because I think Chris Gabehart and Rodney Childers have really kind of proven themselves as some of the top crew chiefs in the business. When Brennan and I come back on Gaughan Racing, we'll start talking about the odds to win and finish top 3.
back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gaughan Racing.
Welcome back to Gaughan Racing. Jeff Motley here live in the South Point Hotel Casino in the beautiful VSiN studios, and my partner Brendan Gaughan, surrounded by Darth Vader, the London Bridge, the Eiffel Tower, and about 5 mixing bowls. For those of you that are watching us on YouTube, and I don't know, what's up with the mixing bowls anyway, Brendan?
So when my wife and son were doing the set before they left, my wife actually takes pieces by color and puts them in different bowls to make sure that she can find them easier.
OCD a little here?
I'm normally the OCD one. That was her. So rather amazing, actually. That I'm impressed with her. I was impressed on that one.
Okay, all right. Well, I like your decor, but we're going to have to talk about the odds to win this race coming up at New Hampshire this weekend. And does it come to is any surprise whatsoever that Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin are the two favorites? We've talked about them a lot. Kevin Harvick's won 3 of the last 5 races there. He finished 5th in the one of the races that he didn't win, and the other one he and his teammate at the time, Kurt Busch, got into a crash about halfway through the race and took themselves out. So Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, clearly the favorites, plus 400 on Kevin Harvick, plus 450 on Denny Hamlin. Then Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr., 2 guys have had a lot of success at New Hampshire. They're both coming in at plus 750, and then Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski at plus 900, and then we get into the double-digit odds. Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, 11 and 12 to 1. Eric Almirola, Kurt Busch, 20. Alex Bowman, 30. Jimmy Johnson and Eric Jones, 33. William Byron, 40. Christopher Bell, Clint Boyer, Matt DiBenedetto, Matt Kenseth, Cole Custer, Matt Kenseth all at 50 to 1, Cole Custer 60, and Tyler Reddick 66 to 1. Anything jump out off the page at you? And there's one that really jumps out at me on there.
There's one that jumps out at me, Jeff, and you're not going to believe this when I say this. In the last 10 races, who has the highest average finish?
The same guy I was going to talk about, and I want everybody to know that you and I did not talk about this before the show. But the guy who has 2 wins there in the last 5 years, who has 3 wins total, and who's driving a car that finished second there 2 years ago, Matt Kenseth.
And that's where I was going, is Matt Kenseth in his career. This has been one of Matt's best tracks since he came into the sport as a rookie in 1999 or whatever year it was. Matt Kenseth is phenomenal at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Average finish in his career of 11.6. I mean, that's a heck of an average finish with 37 races as data points.
And he's got the only guy with more top 10s is Jimmy Johnson, who has 1 more top 10 than Matt Kenseth, and no one has more top 5s. He's tied with Kevin Harvick for the most top 5s ever at this track. And I know Matt might be a little bit rusty, but I think he's starting to get in the groove. Matt's got a good car. He loves this racetrack. It's 50 to 1, but look, if you're looking for a flyer, if you're looking for somebody to go out there and roll the dice and take a chance on for a $2 bet or a $5 bet that would really pay off well, Matt Kenseth is the one I like.
Listen, we had 2 races out of the last 3 that a triple digit won the race. A 100 to 1 plus shot won the race. The last 2 out of the last 3 races. Matt Kenseth, as good as he is there, this could be a place that you could say, hey, now this place looks like a lot of places Matt grew up cutting his teeth in Wisconsin. A lot of flat track, a lot of driver style, mean, elbow up racing, which is maybe why this fits Matt Kenseth really well. I know he has got to have this circled as a place that he wants to do well at.
You know, some other guys that have got some longer odds who, and look, I'm not going to talk about Jimmy Johnson because we know how well Jimmy Johnson's numbers are everywhere, but we know what he's done lately. Yes. Kurt Busch at 20 to 1. I think that's a pretty big number. And Chase Elliott at 11 to 1. Both of those guys in the double digits. I think both of those guys have got an opportunity to certainly pull something out here.
Now, Kurt Busch, though, has never really been great at New Hampshire. His last 5 races, he's got a 5th, an 8th, and a 37th, an 8th, and an 18th.
Well, that 37th was when he and Harvick crashed out halfway through the race.
That's right. And they were running well. Chase Elliott, not been a place he was great at, so far in his NASCAR career. He does have a 5th place finish 2 years ago here, so I don't mind Chase Elliott, but, it's not one of his better as far as I'm concerned. But you got to look at guys like Eric Jones. Been there 4 times, has 2 top 10s, one of them a top 5, a 3rd place in this race last year.
Well, I think we know what's going to happen with Eric Jones. He's either going to finish in the top 5 or Eric Jones is going to end up on his truck before the race is over heading through the tunnel. So I think that's one of the things we've seen with Eric Jones, is a little bit of the inconsistency. I think there's definitely some other guys out there to look out for there. Again, Matt DiBenedetto, we keep saying at some point he's going to break through, and he's sitting here at 50-1 along with Matt Kenseth. I think there's definitely a lot of other guys. But when we come back on Gaughan Racing, it's going to be time to start talking about the top 3, and we get to break down our head-to-head matchups.
Back to our weekly NASCAR show, live from the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gaughan Racing.
Back in here to Gaughan Racing, Jeff Motley live from the South Point Hotel Casino, the beautiful VSiN studios, and my partner Brendan Gaughan, who is still on remote from his home. Brendan, it's time to start talking about the top 3 as we head into New Hampshire at the Magic Mile. And, of course, no big surprise, much mirrors the standings or the odds to win the race, with Kevin Harvick being the favorite at plus 115 and Denny Hamlin at plus 130. A couple guys plus 200 with Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr., and then Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski plus 250, Chase Elliott plus 300, and on down the line. I think a little bit of me is probably surprised that Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin both have plus numbers.
And that's just the first thing that sticks out to you is that you got a plus line on Kevin Harvick, where normally this would be a place you could put him as a minus. I mean, you look at last year, he broke that streak of 20 races that he hadn't won, and he came here and won the race. The year before he won the race, then he blew up. The year before that, he had a big crash, finished 36th, but then 5th and 1st. So he's been 1st, 5th, a crash, 1st. If there's ever a time to be a minus number in the top 3, this is the week for Kevin Harvick.
And a year ago, I think we saw Kyle Busch, when he was quite dominant, having some negative lines on the top 3. Well, I think Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin are every bit as dominant this year as Kyle Busch was last year. So it really surprises me. Even Denny Hamlin, I think you could make a case for Denny Hamlin to be on a negative number or at least even.
Yeah, those two right there. I mean, you look at Denny's last 4 races, a win, 12th, 13th, and a 2nd. So, I mean, Denny, though, this is the type of place that he's really been running strong lately. He's liking these flat tracks. I look at Denny Hamlin and say, you know what, you want a return that, I'm not going to say it's a guaranteed return, but there's a reason why if it's a plus line on Kevin Harvick right now, I almost am going to take that for a top 3.
One thing I heard Denny say, I think in an interview, it might have been this week, he said, I don't know if I'm a better racer. He said, but I know I'm a smarter racer. Denny Hamlin's always been a good racer. Denny Hamlin has not always been a smart racer. Denny Hamlin becoming a good racer and a smart racer, look out.
No, and he proved that to get to Homestead last year. He's definitely shown that he has matured, that he has definitely settled down in his mind a little bit, how to get through these rounds and stages and deal with the ups and downs of a season. But right now, look, 5 races to 4 races, Denny Hamlin versus Kevin Harvick. They've won 9 of the 18 races? Is it 18 yet?
Let's see. We've got to get to 26. We got 7 to go. So, 19 races.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 50% of the time, basically,
right.
Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. So right now, they've got it going. Having them on a plus line, that's not a bad shot. But I want to talk about Matt DiBenedetto. He's down there at 12-1 to be a top 3. And, Jeff, Matt DiBenedetto last year when he went to Levine, 5th place finish in this race. And I don't know if you remember, at the end, he was running in a mix with Kevin and did got kind of shuffled, and he had a chance to win this race.
He absolutely did. And I don't know, Brendan, do you consider New Hampshire a short track? Because I think Matt DiBenedetto has become a really adept short track racer. And I kind of view New Hampshire as a little bit of a short track, and I think that kind of plays into his hands.
It is a short track. The way you have to brake, the way you have to watch out for the rear wheel hop, the way you have to watch out for sliding front brakes, the way that this racetrack handles, it is the biggest short track you're going to be on. And Matt DiBenedetto is doing really well on those type of tracks this year.
Anybody else that jumps out at you before we move into the driver head-to-heads?
Just the same usual suspects to me. I'm looking at the Eric Almirola's, the Eric Joneses. Those guys up there, I think they can get it. But Matt Kenseth also 12-1. I said this is a guy that can win the race, and there he is sitting at a 12-1 for a top 3. So I do like those. Yeah,
I kind of like those. I like that too with Matt Kenseth. All right, let's move into the driver head-to-heads a little bit. I'm going to tell you there's a couple things that surprise me here. I think we've talked a number of times on this show that until Kyle Busch proves something to us,
bet the dope.
And that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. I mean, I'm looking at Ryan Blaney's plus 130 against Kyle Busch. And look, throw out some of the records on Ryan Blaney from past years. Ryan Blaney's having the best year of his career. He's adapting to racetracks better this year. It's another year of experience. And Ryan Blaney plus 130 against Kyle Busch is minus 150. That one comes roaring off the page at me. Brad Keselowski also at plus 130 against Kyle Busch, right, minus 150. That's a couple of those right there that just, I'm telling you, they kind of surprised me.
Look, right now, Ryan Blaney, to your point, 9th, 7th, and 4th in his last 3 races. So, I mean, he is really good at New Hampshire. And putting him on a plus line, I'm betting the dope. I'm basically not betting on Ryan Blaney. I'm betting against Kyle Busch. But I love that Brad Keselowski number. Finished 2nd last week. Brad Keselowski is really good here at New Hampshire. I think that Brad, even though he's not as flashy right now as Kevin or as Denny, has been good enough to be in that conversation. I like that. And I also like Eric Almirola, plus 110 versus Chase Elliott at a minus 130. Chase Elliott has not been in the same conversation as Eric Almirola lately.
No, he hasn't. You're exactly right. And I actually, we've got, and if you're watching us on VSiN right now, there's 3 matchups there involving Hendrick cars. Now, Elliott is a Hendrick car against the Stewart-Haas car there, but we've also got a matchup there where Jimmy Johnson is favored over Alex Bowman. And then we've got an Alex Bowman-William Byron matchup.
I'm not touching that one.
But do you really think Alex Bowman should be the underdog at plus 105 against Jimmy Johnson at minus 125?
He's a slim underdog. Plus 105 is a pretty lean number, especially when you got Jimmy at minus 125. But I would put that more of a pick 'em. Almost maybe Alex Bowman should be a minus 105. So I think that's another glaring one to me. That's a plus line return that you could make an argument that Alex Bowman should not be that big of an underdog to how not well Jimmy Johnson's been running lately. And Bowman last 3 races, 14th, 11th, and 14th. So not terrible. I mean, better than Jimmy's last 3 races there, which, Jimmy's last 3, 14th, 10th, and 30th. So about equal, I guess.
Yeah, and one, it's just kind of interesting because it's up there. Denny Hamlin against Kevin Harvick.
Kevin Harvick.
Now,
I don't know why it's that big of a swing.
That's a big number, plus 130. I mean, that's basically saying, well, Harvick's going to win the race. Everybody's running for second. Is kind of what that tells me.
They got Harvick minus 150 to Denny Hamlin plus 130. And right next door, you have Denny Hamlin minus 150 to Brad Keselowski's plus 130. So you have some head-to-head matchups that have some very strange-looking numbers. But Kevin Harvick being a minus 150 to Denny's, it's worth it to jump on. I mean, that's a tough one, but it's worth it to jump on Denny.
Yeah, it is. And one thing I want to point out to everybody is that New Hampshire is a track where qualifying can sometimes be important. Starting position can be very important because it is not easy to pass. There'll be a draw for qualifying, so don't put your bets in until you're completely sure of what the qualifying order is. All right, we're going to talk about our group matchups when Brendan and I come back on Gaughan Racing.
To our weekly NASCAR show, live from the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Now, back to Gaughan Racing.
Just a reminder, if you missed anything from today's show, you can download the Gaughan Racing podcast today. Not only is it free, but you can download and listen to the show before it airs here on VSiN. The new Gaughan Racing podcast is available via Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher, and at vsin.com/podcasts. Jeff Motley, Brendan Gaughan, final segment of our show today. Time to start talking about those group matchups coming up at New Hampshire. And Brendan, I tell you, just right off the bat at Group A, it kind of seems when I look at the head-to-head matchups that they want to just give the race to Kevin Harvick, but we got him at plus 225, not at plus 125 or plus 165. And furthermore, Kyle Busch is plus 265 over Denny Hamlin's plus 275. So I'm kind of a little bit curious about Group A.
Yeah, I would say Group A to me this week at least, you got a three-man race because I don't think Kyle Busch is going to win that group. They're just saying they got Kyle Busch included in there right now at a plus 265 because they're too afraid to take him out of that because he is Kyle Busch. But Martin Truex at plus 315 got Moody. Hi, Motley.
Do I look like I'm from Vermont?
I said, you're close.
Dave
Moody,
Moody.
Virginia.
Hey, I'll take a compliment if you compare me to Dave Moody. The guy does a great job.
But Martin Truex Jr., last 5 races, they're 7th, 3rd, 5th, 4th, and 6th. Martin Truex ain't no slouch there either, and you're putting him as a 315 dog? I mean, I'm not saying he's going to win it, but that's a good shot right there.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting numbers there. Now, looking over at Group B, we got co-favorites there, the Penske teammates, Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski, and then pretty big lawn shots on Chase Elliott and Joey Logano. I think everybody kind of feels like that's a two-man race between Blaney and Keselowski right there.
Yeah, you look at the 230s, of course, Blaney and Brad, we've talked about them. They are the two favorites. Chase Elliott has faded a lot lately, but Joey Logano, that's the big perplexing one to me. I mean, Joey Logano, normally, Joey is that's just weird to see him that big of a dog in a group.
Yeah, I think, but though, I said on the edge earlier today, Logano's a guy I think I would stay away from this week. I know it's his hometown track, and people like to say because he's from New England, he grew up in Connecticut. I kind of agree with the odds makers here. I think Blaney or Keselowski, one of those two, are going to be the ones that are going to end up winning that group.
Logano being long there, he should be long, but
you think that's too long? You just think that's too long?
It's just too long. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but that's really long to me, but I still wouldn't bet him.
Now, the group we talked about off air that we're kind of scratching our heads about is Group C. The only thing I can figure is once these odds came out and before we got them, somebody's put a lot of money on Eric Almirola. Because Group C has got Eric Almirola at plus 195 and Matt DiBenedetto, Eric Jones, and Kurt Busch all at plus 300.
That to me, you've named 3 guys that I love talking about and betting on every week if I could. And it's Eric, and Matt. And they put them in one group, which kind of bummer for me because I would love to put some money on them. But how do you get Eric Almirola plus 195 that heavy? I don't disagree. 8 top 10s in a row, 5 top 5s in a row at one point. Eric Jones, though, Matt DiBenedetto, both of them running right there with him. That's a huge disparity, but that to me is the big X over that group. I am not touching that group.
Yeah, he might have 8 top 10s in a row, but I think Eric Jones has beaten him either two of the last 3 races, or the last 2 races, maybe.
Beat them by 1 position each race, and they were all for top 10s. I mean, that right there is the most volatile group in this deal, and I put a big, I got the Family Feud X over that. Don't touch it.
All right, and then let's look at Group D. Jimmy Johnson is the favorite here at plus 245 over Alex Bowman, Matt Kenseth, and Ryan Newman. Okay, I will give you him being a favorite over Ryan Newman, but I'm not necessarily sure I'm going to put him a favorite over Bowman or Kenseth.
I look at that group, and that's my Huckleberry group right there. I've already told you about Matt Kenseth having the highest average finish of all those. Matt Kenseth, period. Even Alex Bowman, I'm sorry, he's run good, but he's too streaky. Matt Kenseth has not run good, but Matt Kenseth has a history that I like, and I am jumping on Matt Kenseth all over that number.
And then we'll look at Group E. I want to call this our rookie group plus a guy who looks like he could be a rookie. William Byron at plus 235, and then the three rookies, Christopher Bell, Cole Custer, and Tyler Reddick, all at plus 280. And honestly, I think that's a hard one to handicap. I mean, I probably do like Byron in the group, but certainly wouldn't be shocked to see anybody win that group.
Look, Christopher Bell has been the least consistent. He has 2 good weeks and then 3 bad weeks.
But I think he's been having more good weeks than bad weeks lately.
I'll give you that, but still, he's too hit and miss for me at the moment. What I really like in this group is, look, Cole Custer, he's been – we talked at the start of the show. Cole Custer has been very, very good. Now, it's not a mile and a half, so that makes me say I'm going to take a pause on him for this week, and I'll jump on your William Byron, because this is not a track that I think Tyler Reddick's going to do well at the way he races, and I'm still waiting for Cole Custer to show me something on other than a mile and a half.
Well, I'm kind of with you on all that, too. And let's move into our Group F, the one we like to jokingly call our Ron Flatter group in homage to our original host 3 years ago. Boy, we got 3 co-favorites here. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ryan Preece, who may be the unluckiest guy on the circuit right now, and Bubba Wallace, who wasn't far behind him last week in terms of being unlucky. And then Michael McDowell, the long shot at plus 310. Really not kind of Michael McDowell's cup of tea racetrack, I don't think. Any thoughts on that one? I kind of like Bubba.
You know, I did look up Michael McDowell's stats just to see, and look, remember the teams he's racing for. 17th last year, not bad. But Bubba Wallace, with only 2 data points, Bubba Wallace has a 24th and a 22nd, decent finishes. And you look at Bubba, remember, he won in the Truck Series at Martinsville. This is a stretched-out version of Martinsville, so a place he does.
So you did agree with that analysis that I said it was Martinsville on steroids. Okay.
I do agree with that.
All right.
And, then I look at the other guys in the group. Priest, dear goodness, poor Priest. I feel so bad for Ryan.
That was a hard hit he had Thursday night, by the way. Really hard hit.
Big hit and got right out and put his mask on. What a trooper for NASCAR.
It's like watching these baseball guys. The manager and the umpire, they get ready to argue, and they both come running toward each other, but they're fumbling with the mask to get the mask on before the argument starts. I love it.
But Stenhouse, hit and miss, last 2 races, 30th and 36th. I do like your analysis. I do like Bubba Wallace there. Okay.
Guess what that means, Brendan? It's time to talk about how we did last week at Kansas and then make our picks for this week. Somebody, second time in 3 weeks, gets to pick last, and picking last means we were the winner in our picks. So I don't know if we have the graphic up on the screen for how well we did, but I will say there we go. I was able to get wins with both Kevin Harvick winning Group A. I really went out on a limb there. And Eric Jones. I've been kind of riding the Eric Jones train. Those my 2 winners, got me a plus 2.65. Brendan, you got a big win also with Eric Jones, which was enough to give you over the hump. And William Byron, even though it was even money against Jimmy Johnson, you got a win there to get the plus 1.25. Rough day for our pit crew a little bit there. They did get Denny Hamlin to win Group B, but they kind of put all their eggs in that Busch Brothers basket, and Kurt and Kyle did not come through for them. And because of that, the pit crew is going to be picking first again this week. And we have our producer Karina here, and Karina is in witness protection, so she does not like to show up on the screen. So I will be reading Karina's picks for her. And Brendan, you think she might have learned her lesson last week? No. So she's going with it's actually the pit crew. They pick it together, but I think that Karina is probably the band leader of this right now, because our other producer Isaiah is out. She's going with Kyle Busch, a top 3 at plus 200. She has Kurt Busch, a top 3 at plus 700. She's going to go Ryan Blaney over Denny Hamlin at plus 130. She likes Eric Jones in Group C at plus 300. And she doesn't think too much of your Matt Kenseth pick in Group D, because she's going with Ryan Newman in Group D at plus 275. What say you?
Well, I like that I'm going to be going head-to-head against her in a bunch of bets right here. I'm going to start with head-to-heads. I'm digging it. I've been plus, I think, 4 weeks in a row, Jeff. Just little pluses, but I've been plus. And I'm starting with Eric versus Chase Elliott. I like Eric Almirola. I think that he's just out dueling Chase every week, and I'm taking that. I'm also betting, once again, the don't line on Kyle Busch. I'm going Brad Keselowski head-to-head versus Kyle. I'm not saying that I think that Brad's going to win the race, but He doesn't have to. All he's got to do is beat Kyle. I'm going to go into the top threes, and I'm going to pick Eric Jones to get a top 3 for me. I don't like the group matchup, but I do like him in the top 3. And I'm also going to go Harvick, top 3. I'm sorry. A plus line, plus 115 is small, but I like that. I think I can get a decent, pretty much not a guaranteed win, but I like the idea of it. And then my last pick, I'm going head-to-head with the pit crew. I'm taking Matt Kenseth in Group D. I think that Matt Kenseth is the one to beat there.
I think this is the fewest group picks, Brendan, I believe you've ever made there. You only had one in the groups this week, so that was a little bit different for you. Okay, I get to go last. I like going last. It's very nice to go last, knowing you're a winner. I'm going to go Denny Hamlin at plus 130 to get a top 3. Brendan, I'm with you on the don't line on Kyle Busch. I'm just going with a different driver. I'm going to go Ryan Blaney at plus 130 over Kyle Busch's minus 150. And then I'm going to go in the groups with my other picks, really out on a limb here, but I'm going Kevin Harvick to win Group A at plus 225. I love that high number on Kevin Harvick. I am going to go Eric Jones in Group C. I just like the plus 300 number. And one place where you and I completely agree, Brendan, is in Group D. I'm going with Matt Kenseth at plus 275 in Group D. So, Brendan, we got about 30 seconds left to go in our show. Any final comments about what we should expect this weekend at New Hampshire?
Well, I do like that we're all going head-to-head against each other in a bunch of picks, so I think that's kind of fun. And I just want to race, man. Get me something to watch this weekend so I can have some fun this weekend.
Well, it's going to be different. There's no truck race this weekend. There's no Xfinity race anywhere this weekend. We're just going to have the Cup Series running at New Hampshire on the Magic Mile. It should be an exciting week. Brendan, we want you to keep getting better. I want to get you back here in the studio soon. It's better having you here. We'll be back next week. We'll wrap up New Hampshire, and we'll be talking about the doubleheader coming up in Michigan on Gaughan Racing.